welcome to Shots of Victory. I'm Rocky, and Blake is gone because he's on a cruise. Yep, so it's gonna be a solo episode today. So the topics we're gonna go over today is Raw, NXT, SmackDown, NFL Week 6, and the hot seat head coaches and the players that have been disappointing this year. So starting off with Raw, we had a CM Punk promo about how he was going to be taking some time off because of the intense Hell in a Cell match he was in with Drew McIntyre. Which I don't blame him for taking some time off, honestly, because that was a pretty brutal Hell in a Cell match. It was like one of the most brutal Hell in a Cell matches I've ever seen. And yeah, it was just like so brutal. And also, before we get too much into it, this changes mine, because I won it with the most recent prediction, and I haven't lost this thing all year, so double champ right now, if you guys couldn't tell. Then during the CM Punk promo, like at the very end of it, we hear Seth Rollins' music. He comes out, they have a little stare down. Seth gets into the ring. He says he hopes that CM Punk could get well soon, so he could beat him up right after and send him to retirement. Which was a pretty good line, honestly. I really like that line because it just is like furthering their story that's going to be at WrestleMania. 100% it's at this WrestleMania. Like, they can't keep that feud going on for like an entire year, basically. Because it's been going since like Survivor Series 2023 when Punk got flipped off by Seth Rollins when he returned. Then, Jey Uso's music hits while before we get to that, Seth was having a promo about how he's going to beat Bronson Reed, and he challenges him to a match at any time, anywhere. And then at the very end of that promo, we hear Jey Uso's music. He comes out, and he just interrupts Seth, and it's time for his match. Him and Seth have a stare down, so that could hint to Seth versus Jey in the future, which I wouldn't be mad at. I would love that feud, honestly. That sounds like such a good match, honestly. Like, Seth is such a good in-ring worker and a promo worker. The promos between Seth and Jey that could go on between those two feuding would be so good. Like, the promos that Seth is having with Bronson Reed, like, Bronson Reed has been having some solid promos, like, over the last few weeks when he's had this feud with Braun. And then to mix it with Seth, that is even better. Like, those two can bounce off of each other probably for this entire feud, which is probably going to go to Crown Jewel. And yeah, I honestly think after that we could see Seth versus Jey at Saturday Night Main Event, because I think Jay's going to be in the Survivor Series War Games match for the Bloodline. Okay, next we had Jey Uso versus Xavier Woods, where Jey Uso retained his title against Xavier Woods in a clean match. Xavier refused to shake his hand after the match, and he goes to leave. Then Braun Breaker spears Jey Uso while he's celebrating, and Kofi Kingston's telling Xavier Woods to get into the ring to help Jey, but Xavier Woods refuses, so Kofi goes in alone, gets beat up by Braun. Then Braun goes to the outside and spears Xavier, so he takes them all out in one segment, which I think is just building up the credibility of Braun so much, like taking out three superstars that were the top people of the 2010s tag team division. Like, those three were like, plus Jimmy, those were like the top two tag teams. I would say they're the top two tag teams of all time, honestly. The New Day and the Usos, 100% they're the best. So beating those people down that have so much credibility is such a big upside for Braun Breaker, honestly. Like, this is going to boost his career so much, honestly. And then Braun Breaker, I don't really understand why he's going for the U.S. title, because he literally had a segment with Gunther last week. And I guess we'll know why Braun Breaker's going after him soon, since he didn't say anything on this Raw about why he did. And then next we had a Miz in our Truth segment backstage where Miz is telling him he's not his friend anymore, and Truth is talk about how the kids play together, and then Karen Cross comes in, and he guides Miz to basically have a match with him next week, and I'm excited for that match. Honestly, Miz versus Truth has so much potential to be such a good match. Honestly, and I love Karen Cross's involvement in this. I've been one of Karen Cross's biggest supporters, so seeing him in this role is just making me so happy, honestly. Like, I just don't know why people hate on him. He's, like, such a good, like, mic worker, and he has some pretty good ring talent as well. Like, I know his story talent hasn't been the best, but if you give him the right story, he will execute it well. Like, he has done with this Miz story. Like, during this Miz story, just being the devil on his shoulder, it's just perfect role for him, honestly. Turning people heels like the best thing he's ever done. And then next we had Sheamus versus Pete Dunne in a good old-fashioned Donnybrook match, where Sheamus beats Pete Dunne with his hands tied behind his back with a road kick. That was such a good segment. And this match was so good. I think this might have been Pete Dunne's best match ever. And I know, I always call him Butch, but since Blake's not here, I'm not going to call him Butch. He's the one that calls him Butch. But, yeah, so this was honestly Pete Dunne's best match. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a good Pete Dunne match before that was, like, to this level. Like, I get that it's an Extreme Rules match, technically, which makes the matches even better, usually. But, like, I didn't watch much of his NXT UK days, or, like, anything before he came to the main roster, so I'm pretty new to the Pete Dunne scene. But, like, this is my newest, like, my introduction to Pete Dunne from NXT UK, I'm guessing. Because I've only heard good things about Pete Dunne in NXT UK. Then Cody Rhodes and Sami Zayn have a promo backstage about Sami's match tonight. Sami says he's going to win the match tonight, and Cody says he's going to be watching to scout his opponent for Crown Jewel because of that stupid title belt that Triple H inducted. Yay! We all love that title, honestly. It's one of our favorite titles, probably. Like, who doesn't love a Crown Jewel title? Like, it's definitely not only going to last 1 year before it gets scrapped like the Greatest Royal Rumble title. Or the Saudi main event title thing that... It was like a tournament. I can't even remember how it went, honestly. And then we had Liv, Dom, and Raquel arriving at Raw, and they get interviewed, like, on if Raquel is in the Judgment Day. And they don't answer if she's in the Judgment Day, and then they just leave. I don't know why they just have them be there and then leave. Like, it just creates even more questions, honestly. Like, why don't you have her at least say something like, oh, she's in the Judgment Day with us, or oh, she's I don't know, like, just do something for once. Like, you have Raquel back. You need her to, like, actually do something. Like, show her dominance. Like, I know that she powerbombed Rhea at Bad Blood, but you need to show how dominant she is. Like, you can't just have her show up one scene on Raw and just have her be a bodyguard. Like, that is not going to work, like, for this gimmick. Like, if you are feuding with Rhea Ripley, you need to be on your A game, because if you're not on your A game, Rhea Ripley's going to bury you. She's done that to every opponent she's been in a title feud with, except Becky Lynch, who was on her A game, and Nia Jax. Those two were the only ones that she did not bury. And then next we had a 10-woman tag team match, where Unholy Union and Pure Fusion Collective teamed together to face KC2, Zelina Vega, Natalya, and Lyra Valkyria. And the faces win this match, of course, as Lyra Valkyria, I believe, pinned Sonya Deville, which was an okay match. The match was okay, but it just feels like they're rushing and just putting everything on the show since it's a 2-hour Raw, and which I will talk about after we finish talking about Raw. But it just seemed like everything was just like they just sped everything up and crammed it into that one match. Like, they put like 3 feuds into just one match, which I didn't really understand, but I'm okay with it. Then in the main event, we had Gunther versus Sami Zayn for the World Heavyweight Championship, where Gunther was beating him up the entire match, but Sami Zayn would not go down. Then we see Sami Zayn start to make a comeback, and Gunther was looking weak. Then Gunther hits his finishers, then locks in the submission hold, and Sami Zayn is out. Gunther retains his title. Then after that, we see Cody Rhodes come out, and they have a stare down on the ramp as the show ends. I honestly love that match. That match was so good. It was probably my favorite Sami Zayn match ever. That is a rough thing to say because of Sami Zayn. He's flipping Sami Zayn. He's had many good matches. I know, it's crazy, but like I haven't been a big Sami Zayn fan for very long. Like I've watched his stuff. I've watched a lot of his stuff, honestly, but I've just now started to appreciate his work. Like, once he got into the Bloodline, like, that's when I started to appreciate his work. Like, before that, he was a mid-carder, like, jobber to me, basically. When he lost to Johnny Knoxville at WrestleMania, I was like, oh my gosh, he's such a loser. But the next year, he's winning tag team titles in the main event. Like, come on. That is absolutely crazy development. And then the next year, he's facing, who was it that he faced? Did Sami even have a match? I don't know if Sami had a match. Oh wait, yeah, Sami had a match against Gunther and it beats him for the longest reigning world IC champion, which is crazy. And then he has another match and this is just Gunther marking off the mistakes on his IC title run, more like during his run on the main roster. Randy first, then Sami. Those are his two mistakes that he's made because he was too overconfident with Sami. And he didn't actually beat Randy. But he's actually beat Randy, and he wasn't overconfident for Sami this time. So this is like showing that he's a new Gunther. Like he's not the old Gunther that was the IC champion. So this is what they want him to be as the World Heavyweight Champion. So this 2-hour Raw I didn't really like because of how many commercials there was. I feel like if they could have shortened down the commercials, I feel like it would have been so beneficial to the episode, honestly. Like, why would you have, like, 3 hours of commercials fit into a 2-hour Raw? Like, they kept the same amount of commercials as they would have in a 3-hour Raw, but it was only 2 hours. So they just had an overload of commercials for that Raw. Like, it just doesn't make sense. But other than that, it seemed pretty good. Like, the stuff seemed kind of rushed. Like, everything was all together, basically. But it kind of fit the show, honestly. Like, CM Punk and Seth and Jay segment was, like, peak. That was, like, I thought the show was going to be so good, but then we just get hit with, like, 2 commercials in the Jey Uso versus Xavier Woods match. I'm like, what the heck? It's only, like, a 10-minute match, and you're, boom, just 2 commercials right away. It's crazy. And then the NXT CW Week 2 results, we had a Trick Williams promo on winning the NXT Championship. And then in the crowd we see Wesley. He's talking about how he should have a shot at the championship now that he beat Zachary Wentz the following week. So they have a little bicker, and then we hear Jey Uso's music, and he comes out and says he's in the city, and they just end the promo there. I don't know why Jey Uso came out. It was pretty unnecessary, honestly, and I don't know why they would just do that in the middle of a Wesley and Trick Williams feud. Like, I think that would be a pretty good feud, so I don't know why they would interrupt it just with Jey Uso. Like, he could have been somewhere later into the show. Like, you don't need him to interrupt this feud. Like, those two are going to be always great together. Like, those two would have perfect chemistry in the ring. Like, Trick Williams and Wesley will match up so well together. And then we had Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill teaming up with Kalani Jordan to face Fatal Influence, where they obviously pick up the W against them. And it was an okay match. I wasn't really a big fan of this match. It was just like, it was just there, honestly. It was not one of my favorite matches of the night. And then we had Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade having a promo that gets interrupted by Julia, and she introduces a debuting Stephanie Vaquer, who as they beat down Cora and Roxanne in the ring, which I really was I'm a Cora Jade fan. Like, I've always been a Cora Jade and Roxanne Perez fan, so I'm not really sure about this new women's era that they're ushering in, but I'm guessing it's gonna be good because all I've heard from these women is that they are amazing. I've only seen that one Julia match, which it was an okay match, honestly, but I'm just so excited that Cora Jade's back. Like, I thought she was gonna be out so much longer, but I'm just glad she's back. And then next we had a backstage segment with Lexus King and No Quarter Catch Crew, where what's his name? The fancy dude, William Regal's son, Charlie Dempsey. He's talked to Lexus King about gentleman rules matches since Lexus wants to have a gentleman's rules match with Ora Mensah since he doesn't want any tomfoolery going around in that match. Tomfoolery is crazy, dude. But yeah. Then we had Tony D'Angelo versus Obafemi for the North American Championship, where surprisingly Tony D'Angelo dethrones Obafemi, the longest reigning North American champion, with a roll up. He beat him off of a roll up, which is like nuts. Because why would you beat one of the longest reigning champs off of a roll up? Like, Tony D'Angelo should look strong. Like, he shouldn't win off of a roll-up. Like, if he had won off of, like, his finisher, that would have been cool. Like, that would put Tony D'Angelo over. Then we could have Oba just not even go after him again and just go straight for the main title and go after Trick Williams. Like, that would be a great feud. Trick Williams versus Obafemi would be an amazing feud. But I'm guessing they're waiting to hold that off since Oba's just going to dominate Trick if they do that, which is not good because they want Trick to usher in the new decade of the new era of NXT. So yeah, that was one of my favorite matches. That was my favorite match of the night, probably. Tony D'Angelo winning and holding up that Italian flag was just a moment to see. Honestly, they was so crazy, but I honestly think Oba should have retained. Honestly, like, a roll-up? Are you serious? Like, you couldn't have a better story point for him to lose to? I just wasn't a big fan of it. Then we had Nikita Lyons returning in a backstage segment with Ava and Lola Vice, where they set up a match for next week. It's okay. I honestly thought that Nikita Lyons was signed to NXT. So yeah, it was an okay segment. Then Fraxium retained their tag team titles against A-Town Down Under, and a great match, honestly. I love the match. It was such a good match. But I feel like A-Town Down Under, they keep hinting at the breakup, but it's just isn't happening. Like, what are you doing with it? Like, just break them up already if you're not going to do anything with them on SmackDown. Like, I get if you're going to move them to NXT, keep them together. But if you're going to just have them only on for that one feud, then go back to SmackDown and do nothing, it just doesn't make sense, honestly. Then next we had a Ridge Holland and Riley Osborne brawl backstage, which I honestly didn't see, so I couldn't really comment on that. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of this feud. Like, why is it Riley Osborne? Like, why couldn't it be Duke Hudson or, like, Andre Chase? Like, I feel like that would be a more impactful feud. Like, you don't need Riley Osborne. I know you want to build, like, new stars for the show for the upcoming years, but you don't need to just put them on when you have established stars. And you could have a great feud between them. While the feud with Riley Osborne is just going to be okay at the best. Then next we have a Sexy Red concert that is luckily interrupted by Ethan Page, where Ethan Page then is taken out by Jonathan Evans and they celebrate together. Yay! Sexy Red in NXT. Whoop whoop. Why do we have to have her in NXT? I've never been a fan of Sexy Red, honestly, so yeah, I just wasn't a big fan of that segment. Then we had my most anticipated match of the week, and why have this championship? Randy Orton versus Javon Evans, where Randy Orton defeats Javon Evans, which they had a botched spot where Javon Evans was going for a corkscrew off the top rope, but he misses, and Randy couldn't hit the RKO, so Randy gets him up and hits an RKO on him, just a standing RKO, and Javon sold it perfectly. And then it was such a great sell, honestly. And yeah, and then after the match, Javon apologizes to Randy for missing that spot. And he says it's fine. He didn't go all Kofi Kingston on him and call him stupid. He's stupid. Yeah, so then we see Ava in the back, and she announces a triple threat match to determine Trick Williams' contender between Ethan Page, Wesley, and Javon Evans for, I think it's next week. So yeah, that should be pretty interesting, honestly. So now on to SmackDown. Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso had a promo about how they need a backup. Roman Reigns acknowledges Jimmy Uso during that promo, which I thought was a pretty good nod to their "I acknowledge you" story, which was amazing. And then Roman said they don't need backup, which Jimmy did not agree with, so he walked out of the ring on him. Then we had LA Knight versus Carmelo Hayes for the United States Championship, where Andrade was ringside, and Carmelo Hayes just couldn't get his eyes off of him, so he just kept staring at him during the match, and it really cost him as LA Knight picks up the W, and Andrade tells him to put the fries in the bag. Then we see Lash Legend and Jakar Jackson coming out for their tag team title match. And then we see Kevin Owens go into the ring, slide into the ring. And he's promoting about how Cody Rhodes is in the wrong, teaming up with Roman Reigns, the person that they've always been fighting against. He's teaming up with the enemy. And then Cody Rhodes comes out, security's holding him apart. Randy Orton says he can fix this. He goes into the ring. KO accidentally hits him. Randy then fires back and hits KO. He looks really sad that he did it, and KO just walks out holding his head. And yeah, so then we get to the tag, which I love the story. They are just making it look so organic. They are just doing stuff off screen, and then also having these two friends battle with each other, and seeing the emotions stir in their heads is so cool. And then next we had the actual tag team match, which we were scheduled, Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill versus the NXT Meta-4 girls, which was a pretty good match. It was a pretty short match. I think it was 2 to 5 minutes, which it was a pretty short match, but a good match. But it's understandable since they're NXT talent, so of course they're not gonna do as well against main roster talent, and it's Bianca Belair, for crying out loud. Of course they're not going to do good. So Bianca and Jade, of course, retained their titles against them. And then next we had so Randy Orton makes Cody Rhodes leave on his bus so that he doesn't get attacked by him, and he says that he's going to talk to Kevin, try to reason with him. Nick Aldis makes a funny joke about how Randy's now the voice of reason, which was pretty funny. Then we had a Nia Jax and Tiffany Stratton promo, where they were talking about how Tiffy's going to cash in on Liv at Crown Jewel once Nia beats her. Then we see Naomi come out and says she's tired of Nia's title reign and says she wants to face her right now. Then we see Judgment Day come out, and they are going to be at ringside for this match. And then we get Nia Jax versus Naomi, but it's not for the title. So Naomi beats Nia Jax with the help of Liv Morgan. So yeah, that was a pretty good segment. I love this match as well. Naomi can just go in the ring. She is so good in the ring, honestly. I love her in-ring segments so much. Yeah, so then after the match, Rhea Ripley comes out. See, this is what I don't like about Rhea Ripley. She gets overbooked so much. She takes out Raquel, who's supposed to be the dominant bodyguard for Liv Morgan. She takes her out so easily. Then she takes out Nia Jax with a big boot. Your world champion gets taken out with one big boot. Then she takes out Liv pretty easily. And then Liv only gets away because of a Dominic Mysterio distraction. Which, come on, you are just making your top heels look bad just because you want one face to look good. Like, why can't you have the heels look dominant for once? I'm just hoping they can make the heels look dominant soon. Then we got Legado del Fantasma promo backstage with Nick Aldis, where he sets up a tag team match for them next week, and it's pretty much confirmed. It's Motor City Machine Guns, which is gonna be a pretty good match because the Garzas are not a team to mess with. They are such a good tag team, honestly, and I just can't wait to see them on NXT. I mean, no, SmackDown against Motor City Machine Guns. I know they're probably gonna get squashed because it's Motor City Machine Guns' first match, but yeah, that's gonna be a good match. Then we got Kevin Owens backstage and he's beating up Randy Orton, and Nick Aldis separates them and security separates them as well. And yeah, I just think that it's wonderful what they're doing with this story. Like, Kevin Owens just beating up his best friend Randy Orton. It's just like heart-wrenching to see, honestly. Which I think the WWE is pulling it off perfectly if they're doing it this way. Like, it is just great to see. Then we have Solo Sikoa versus Jimmy Uso. It is an amazing match, honestly. Jimmy Uso's return match is so good. It is one of Jimmy Uso is so good in the ring. I love how he wrestles. And then, of course, Solo Sikoa wins this match because of interference from the Bloodline. Then Bloodline is beating down Jimmy. Out comes Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns gets outnumbered by the Bloodline, though, and they all beat him down. And Jimmy tells him they need backup, and Roman looks like he's conflicted about it. Like, he's thinking, we do need backup. So, I'm excited to see where that goes. Hopefully, Jay gets back in. Hopefully, Sammy's back in. So we can get Sammy, Jay, Jimmy, and Roman, the original Bloodline, versus Solo, Jacob, Tama Tonga, and Tonga Loa, the new Bloodline. Bloodline versus new Bloodline. Such a good story that could happen. So now let's get into the NFL picks. Okay, so now going into the NFL stuff, we got our first game of the week on Thursday Night Football. We have 49ers with Seahawks, where the 49ers win 36-24. Laviska Shenault had the second ever kickoff return touchdown with these new rules, which was pretty exciting to see. Like, he's not a very good player, but he just getting that return is just such a good moment for him. Then we have George Kittle having an awesome day in the air with 5 catches for 58 yards and 2 touchdowns, which is honestly pretty good for a tight end. Like, tight ends this year have not been that good, so for him to get those stats is just great for him. Then we got a London game, Tea and Crumpets, mate. We got Jaguars at Bears. Bears destroy the Jaguars 35-16. The score isn't even as close as it was. It was basically a blowout from the start. Like, the Bears had one bad drive, and then they just started dominating the entire rest of the game. As it is evident by Caleb Williams going 23 for 29 on the day with 226 passing yards and 4 touchdowns, but 1 interception, plus 56 rushing yards. And then Evan Ingram led the Jaguars in the air with 10 catches for 102 yards. No touchdowns, as Gabe Davis had both the touchdowns, surprisingly. Which is okay, because he's Gabe Davis, so what do you expect from him? So, yeah. Then we had the 1 p.m. slate games, which was started out by Bucks versus Saints. Bucks win 51-27. Saints scored all their points in one quarter in the second quarter. Sean Tucker led the Bucks to this win on 17 touches for 192 total yards and 2 total touchdowns. Then Rashid Shaheed, he didn't do much through the air this game, but he had a punt return touchdown, which was pretty sick to see. Then we had Commanders at Ravens, my favorite game of the week, honestly. Ravens win 30-23. And Terry McLaurin tried his hardest to get his team the win with 6 catches for 53 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he just couldn't do it, as Derrick Henry looked good on the ground with 24 carries for 132 yards and 2 touchdowns. Father Time has not reached Derrick Henry, and I don't know when he will, because Derrick Henry has looked like a beast every single season, and he's just getting better and better, and he gets older and older. He gets better with age. which is like surprising for a running back. Running backs are not supposed to do that. So yeah, then we see the Cardinals at the Packers, which is my disappointment game of the week. Packers win 34-13. Jordan Love looks great as he goes 22 for 32 for 258 yards and a touchdown, but also an interception to, I think it was Sean Murphy Buntling, which was pretty cool to see him get an interception. Trey McBride has had 8 catches for 96 yards on the day, but the touchdown for the Cardinals, which was their only one of the day, went to Michael Wilson through the air. Then we got Colts at Titans. Colts win 20-17. Josh Downs had a great day with 7 catches for 66 yards and a touchdown. Michael Pittman Jr. had the other touchdown for the Colts. Tony Pollard carried the Titans offense on his back with 17 carries for 93 yards and a touchdown, which Tony Pollard is just an underrated running back in my opinion. Like, Tony Pollard is, I would say, a top 15 running back in this league, maybe even top 10, but he just gets so undervalued because of the teams he's on. They can either not block or they just have bad schemes for him. Then we have Texans at Patriots. Texans win 41-21. Joe Mixon and Damian Pierce both combined for 21 carries for 178 yards and 2 total touchdowns. Then in Drake May's debut game, he goes 20 for 33 for 243 yards and 3 touchdowns, but 2 interceptions, which is a really good debut game. Like, having over 200 yards in a debut game is amazing. And adding 3 touchdowns onto that is great. Like, that is such a great debut game. I know the 2 interceptions and everything, but that just really doesn't matter when you're talking about, like, how bad this receiver room is. And that dot he threw to Sean Butte, I think it was, that was just greatness. Then we had a game that should not have been close, Browns at Eagles, where the Eagles won 20-16. What are you doing, Eagles? You're supposed to dominate this Browns team. They've done nothing this year. And the Browns' only touchdown of the day came through a blocked field goal, by Myles Garrett, which was returned for a touchdown, which was pretty cool to see, honestly. Like, I haven't seen a blocked field goal. Well, we saw one last week, but it's getting more common, it seems, seeing more blocked field goals, which is odd. But anyways, Pierre Strong Jr. led the Browns offense as he had 10 touches for 77 yards, which was not enough to beat the Eagles, though, as A.J. Brown had an amazing return day with 6 catches for 116 yards and a touchdown. And then we had another disappointment game for me, Chargers at Broncos. Chargers win 23-16. Bo Nix goes off for 277 total yards, 2 touchdowns, but also 1 interception, which was pretty sad to see because Bo Nix has been great this season. And I just think he's undervalued on that Broncos team. Like, his only good receiver is Courtland Sutton. So he's just going to get double-teamed, basically, in the entire game. So you're just throwing to, like, no-names, basically, the rest of the game. But, on the other side of the ball, Dobbins and Kamani Vidal have made their presence known with 33 touches for 153 total yards and 2 total touchdowns. Which Kamani Vidal is a really good running back. Like, I know he's their third string since Gus Edwards is out, but this is such a good pickup by the Chargers. Like, he is such a versatile running back that I think he might be a starter in the NFL one day. Then we see Steelers at Raiders. I did not really pay attention to this game, but the Steelers win 32-13. Justin Fields had 204 total yards and 2 rushing touchdowns, while Najee Harris has 122 total yards and a rushing touchdown. And Aiden O'Connell in his first start of the season goes 27 for 40 for 227 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Which was an okay stat line for your first game of the year, first start of the year. This was his first start of the year. He's played in other games since Gardner Minshew had gotten benched in a couple games, but this is his first official start. So then we got, in another 4 p.m. slate game, we got Falcons at Panthers, where the Falcons win 38-20. Bijan and Tyler Alligator, I know it's Algier, but I call him Alligator, they go crazy, and on the ground they get 33 combined carries for 200 exact yards and 3 touchdowns. Then Deontay Johnson has a great day with 6 catches for 78 yards and a touchdown, which I just like how he's done in the season. Like, he didn't have a really good quarterback last year, so he wasn't like able to thrive last year. But seeing now with Andy Dalton as his starting quarterback, which is also not a good quarterback, he's actually doing good when he doesn't have to compete with anybody for catches except Xavier Legette. Then next we had the Lions decimating the Cowboys 47-9 on Jerry Jones' birthday. Jared Goff has 315 passing yards and 3 touchdowns, while David Montgomery has 12 carries for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. Then Dak Prescott did not look good as he went 17 for 33 for 178 yards and 2 interceptions. He got benched during this game for Cooper Rush, who also threw an interception to Kirby Joseph, I believe, was the person he's... No. He threw it to Brian Branch, I think, because I think Kirby Joseph's interception got Dak benched. I can't remember which way it was, but yeah, it did not look good. And sadly, Aiden Hutchinson's out for the year. I think it's a broken tibia, which is sad for the Lions. Prayers up for Aiden Hutchinson for a good recovery. But yeah, it looks like he will be healthy for the start of the 2025 season, which is always good to hear. Then in our late game of the evening, we have Bengals at Giants, which was a stinker. I think it was like 20-7. Honestly, like why would you have this game in primetime? Like, that's such a bad idea to have like that game in primetime. Like, why would you have the Giants in primetime? Like, okay, so yeah, the score was 17-7, which is still not good. Which was not a good game for them, as Chase Brown and Joe Burrow eat it up on the ground with 14 carries for 108 yards and 2 touchdowns, which I think were the only 2 touchdowns the Bengals scored, which is correct because they only got 17 points. And then Tyrone Tracy Jr. led the Giants' offense with 23 total touches for 107 total yards and a rushing touchdown, which is really good because he's the backup running back. It's behind Devin McSingle-Kringletary, which is just awesome to see a backup running back doing that behind not so good offensive line. So yeah, that was it for this week. Well, we still got Bills versus Jets predictions. I got the Bills winning 23-19 over the Jets. Blake's not here and he didn't give me anything to say, so I retain the sports tile for this week off of default. So yeah, now let's get into the NFL hot seats for head coaches. So the first hot seat we got, which this coach has already gotten fired, is Robert Saleh. He was 20-36 with the Jets, and the reason he got fired was Rodgers didn't like him. That's honestly the reason. So don't listen to any of the stuff they give you saying, "Oh, it was because he didn't gel with the team and we think this team's better than the record he's gotten us to." It's because Rodgers doesn't like him. Then Doug Peterson is the second coach I have on this list. He is the Jaguars head coach. He has a 19-21 record with the Jaguars. And he's struggled a lot with team development over these past 2 years with the Jaguars. 3 years, sorry. He had that one good year, and then he had the bad year last year. Now he's off to a horrible start. I think it's 1-5 this year. Then the next coach I have is Dennis Allen, the Saints head coach. He is 18-22 record with the Saints and has struggled after a hot start this year. He had a hot 2-0 start where his team scored over 40 points those 2 games. But the next 3 games he has not done so. Next 4 games, I'm sorry. He has not done so hot. Like, I know he's good and all, but he's not that good, honestly. Like, seeing him coach, I am honestly not impressed by it, and I think he's going to be gone after this season. So then next up, we have Mike McCarthy, the Cowboys head coach. I get that he has a winning record of 45-28, but he has not gotten this team in playoff success when they should be a automatic playoff team contending for the Super Bowl every year. with the talent they have on this roster. But he's just not been able to coach them good enough to get them past the divisional round, which has just been a disappointment. So they just need a coaching change up there, a cultural change, 100%. Then next we have Kevin Stefanski, the Browns head coach. He is 38-35 record with the Browns, and I know he won Coach of the Year last year, but he might just get fired because they want to blame somebody for the Deshaun Watson trade, honestly. Because in that he hasn't benched Deshaun Watson, which he should have, because of how bad Deshaun Watson's been this year. It's just sad to see. If he benched Deshaun Watson, I bet his job security would be safe right now. But since he hasn't benched him yet, I think he might be a little risky in the hot waters right now. Then coming up next, we have Antonio Pierce, the Raiders head coach, who is 7-8, who has a 7-8 record with the Raiders, and the team has not performed well this year at all. None of the players have looked well this season except Brock Bowers and maybe Max Crosby. Those two are the only good players this season that I've seen produce actually good stats. And then next we see Dave Canales, the Panthers head coach. I know he's in his first year and all, but he's off to a 1-5 start, and he got hired to develop Bryce Young. But what does he do? He just benches Bryce Young. He's failed his job already. They're just waiting for the end of the season to fire him. And David Tepper has a pretty quick trigger finger, so once he sees that he's not needed there anymore, he's going to fire him. Then next we have Nick Sirianni, the Eagles head coach. He has a 37-19 record with the Eagles, but he's not doing as good as fans have hoped this team would do, as he barely beat the Browns this week, which that should be an automatic win for you, honestly. Then we have Zach Taylor, the Bengals head coach. He is 39-48 record with the Bengals, and the team has struggled this year, even though they have talented stars on both sides of the ball, which really does not look good for him, because you can't start off 2-4 with Joe Burrow as your starting quarterback and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins as your starting receivers. You cannot start off 2-4, which is very likely that you'll miss the playoffs with that kind of record to start the season. And that's it for the head coaches. And now on to the disappointment players. So first we got Deshaun Watson, who's the Browns quarterback, and he's 9-9 record with the Browns. And he struggled since he's gotten there back in 2022. And then we have Aaron Rodgers, the Jets quarterback. 2-3 record with the Jets, and he might be washed. Looking like it so far with how bad he's been doing. He's been pretty terrible this year. He looks horrendous, honestly. And then Deshaun Watson also has looked horrendous. Do you know who's also looked horrendous? Will Levis, the Titans quarterback. He has a 4-10 record with the Titans and has made many mistakes this season. His interceptions are so bad that he leads the league in interceptions. One behind him is Jordan Love also, but I won't talk about that. Then Bryce Young is also a disappointment player this year, as people were expecting him to improve, but he has a 2-16 record with the Panthers. And he was the number 1 pick last year. He's already gotten benched. That just doesn't say enough about how bad he's been these last 2 years. That you can get benched as the number 1 quarterback is crazy. Then next we have Derek Carr, the Saints quarterback. He's 11-11 record with the Saints. I know he's been doing good this season, but he did not do it as good last season. Because he's just not lived up to the contract that he signed. He was so hyped coming into it, but he's just not been as good as people have wanted him to be. Then next, we got, as the final quarterback on this list, we got Daniel Jones, the Giants quarterback. He has a 24-41 record with the Giants, and has not lived up since his 2022 season, which got him his massive contract extension. He has not looked the same since he got that, I think it was 5 years, $40 million per year contract, which is insane for the stats he even put up. So that was just an insane contract at the time, and it's looked even worse since the stats that he's put up since it. Then next we have Javonte Williams, the Broncos running back. He's played 43 games with them, and he has not been the same since his injury that 1 year. I think it was after his rookie year he got injured, and he's just not looked the same. It's just ruined his career. He's not looked the same at all since then. And another person that we have on the list is Travis Etienne, the Jaguars running back, who had 3 carries for -1 yards against the Bears, but I know he got injured, so it's not his fault that he finished the day with those stats. He's played 40 games with the Jaguars, but has not lived up to the expectations this year. He was expected to bounce off this year. Like, since he had a great year last year, he was expected to skyrocket this year. But Tank Bigsby's basically taken his job and benched him at this point. Another running back that's not been doing good is Breece Hall, the Jets running back. He has 29 games with the Jets in his career and has not passed 60 rushing yards in a game this year, which is pretty sad for him. Now, I'm probably going to get contradicted by this and the Bills game because I always get things like this wrong. And he's probably going to have a career day against the Bills. But he's not looked good this season. Then we have Brandon Ayuk, the 49ers wide receiver who has 69 games with the 49ers and has not lived up to the contract money he got this offseason. He's had 1 good game out of these 6 games he's played. And 1 good game. That does not need to get how much he's gotten paid. I think it's like $34 million a year, which is crazy for anybody to get that much money. But just for that production, it is not good. Then Amari Cooper, the Browns wide receiver, he has 38 games with Browns. And then he's just dropped off from last year, which is really not his fault since he went from Joe Flacco to Deshaun Watson, which is just a terrible downgrade. So it's not really his fault. It's more Deshaun Watson's fault. But it's also, I just had to put him on here, honestly. Then we have Garrett Wilson, the Jets wide receiver, who's played 39 games with the Jets. And this is the worst season of his career, honestly. He's had a pretty slow start, but he's starting to pick it up, so I'm hoping he can make a huge comeback this season. But he just hasn't started the season off so good, so he's going to make this list. Then we have a tight end who contradicted me after I made this list. Is Mark Andrews, the Ravens tight end. He's played 93 games with the Ravens, and he's basically transitioned to offensive tackle. What do you know it? He catches a touchdown right after I write this script. Fantastic, Mark Andrews. Then another tight end we have is Sam Laporta, another tight end who scored a touchdown this weekend. 22 games with the Lions. And I would say he's in his sophomore slump. Like, compared to his stats last year where he was amazing, he's just not been the same as last year. But that's all for our disappointment players, so that will be all for this episode. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and hopefully Blake will be back next week. So I will see you guys next time, and as always, much love, peace.